Hey Merfolk fans, I'm Joe. Thanks very much for joining me today. I'm here with a replay of round 3 of a Modern Friendly League. I won the die roll, so I'm going to get to play first. And this is a pretty solid opening hand. I kept, and the opponent kept. Obviously, we want to hit another land or two, but for now, we've got a lot of creatures, and AEther Vial is going to help us get those guys onto the battlefield. The opponent played a Flooded Strain, cracked it for an untapped Hallowed Fountain into Serum Vision, so some kind of blue-white control. I'm pretty sure they went top with this Serum Visions, which is never great for us. Another AEther Vial is okay. Not unhappy to see that. The opponent plays a Sulfur Falls, so they're on some kind of Jeskai build. Either tempo or control, we can't really tell yet. I'll play the Cursecatcher and go to my turn, tick up the AEther Vials, and hopefully draw a land. Well, Kira is a good draw. We've got AEther Vials. We're going to be able to get her onto the battlefield. And yeah, she's actually one of the... This matchup is one of the reasons that I've got the 2 Kiras in the main deck. I'm going to go straight to combat. Swing with the Cursecatcher. The opponent's representing a lot of possible removal. So deciding not to bring in a Lord on my turn. So swing for 1. The opponent takes it. And then during the end step, looks like they're going to bolt the Cursecatcher. That's fine. The Cursecatcher got in a point of damage. The opponent spent a lightning bolt. Sort of fine with that exchange. For their turn, they play a tapped Hallowed Fountain. And rather than bring in a creature on the opponent's end step, I decided with the Kira that I should probably wait until the next turn cycle to bring in any of my creatures. All right, so 3 and 2. We draw a Mutavault, which is a very easy decision to try to run out this Spreading Seas to hit that Sulfur Falls. But it looks like they have some kind of counter magic to answer this thing. All right, so a Logic Knot, delving away the Flooded Strand that was in the graveyard. I don't have 1 mana to pay, and I don't have another Cursecatcher, so unfortunately I can't answer the Logic Knot, and my Spreading Seas will get countered. Opponent having good answers so far. There's an answer to my Mutavault on Field of Ruin, so well, at least during the end step we can bring in Kira and one of our Island Walk Lords. So I'm going to keep these AEther Vials on 3 and 2. It lines up perfectly with what I've got in my hand. Another AEther Vial. Not the best draw. The opponent's obviously representing Cryptic Commands, so I decided that I was going to activate Mutavault and try to get in for the full 8 points of damage. It's a 2-turn clock. If they have the Cryptic, they have the Cryptic. If they tapped just the Kira and the Lord, then of course I could activate Mutavault and swing in for 3. But I'd rather take the chance going for the 2-turn clock here. Of course, the opponent has the Cryptic Command, so far they've bolted a Cursecatcher, countered Spreading Seas, and now tapping my team and drawing a card. All right, so that's pretty rough. Opponent cracks a Scalding Tarn, and let's see what's happening here. They're going to Field of Ruin my Mutavault. I replace that with an island. And the follow-up is a Path to Exile on the Kira, followed up by a Lightning Helix. So we're getting a 2-for-1 out of the Kira, which is great for us. Now, with the opponent tapped out and their shields down, it's possible that it's a trap, and they're luring me into putting a lot of creatures onto the board. But if we get both of these Lords onto the table, it's 12 points of damage, putting them all the way down to 6. We've got a lot more creatures in the deck. They're on 3 cards at this point. Of course, they could have access to graveyard value since we haven't seen any Snapcasters yet. But I felt like this was our best opportunity to push damage. Now, Silvergill is a nice draw. It's not going to contribute any more damage this turn, of course, unless I flash it in with Vial and then draw another Lord to play. But that would be extremely overcommitting, overextending. So I'll swing for 12 now and then see if the opponent does have the board wipe. I'll play that extra AEther Vial during my turn. Of course, the opponent has the Supreme Verdict, so everything has been perfect for the opponent so far this game. Serum Visions, bolting my first creature, counter my first spell, tap my first big attack, and then wipe my board as soon as I commit some creatures. So I'll activate the Vial, bring in the Silvergill, and hope for the best. Opponent taps red. Might be juking me a little bit, messing with my brain. Does he have the Lightning Bolt or doesn't he have the Lightning Bolt? I'm going to leave this on 3 for the time being, and we'll just take up the new AEther Vial to 1. So we'll have 3, 2, and 1 for this turn. Spell Pierce is interesting. If I hadn't drawn that, I probably would have just played out this Spreading Seas. So I'm going to go straight to combat, I think, try to get in with this Silvergill Adept. We have the opponent all the way down to 6. And with the opponent having drawn 5 lands already and likely to hit more in the future, I feel like countering this Lightning Bolt is probably a good idea. So I'll use this Spell Pierce. We can keep our eyes open and see if this Spell Pierce would be useful later in the game. My guess is that it's probably not going to be that useful, so better to save the creature now and get in for some damage. After that, we'll pass back to the opponent. Looks like they're not playing a land drop. And a Lightning Helix, of course. So we counted the Bolt, but then we got hit by the Lightning Helix, bringing the opponent's life total back up to 7, totally negating that attack with the Silvergill Adept. All right, now we'll go 4, 3, and 2 on the AEther Vials. That covers all of our high-impact creatures. The Master of Waves looks great. If I can land the Spreading Seas, I'll get a nice amount of devotion on the table, and Master of Waves will actually bring 6 power to the table. So let's go ahead and cast that Spreading Seas. We'll target the white mana since the opponent currently is on 2, and he needs 2 white to cast Supreme Verdict. So the opponent has a Spell Snare. Every single thing. All right, end step. Master of Waves. Let's go. All right, so again, the AEther Vials are just going to sort of stay where they are. What am I going to draw for this turn? Island, not great. I'm just going to attack with Master of Waves here. We're not going to win if we don't attack. We're just going to, get pathed, etc. So, of course, the opponent has a Snapcaster. There's a Path to Exile in the graveyard, so he can hit this Master cleanly. I get to thin my deck of an island, and now the opponent has a clock. So they play a fetch land and pass the turn. No attacks with Snapcaster yet. I'm going to leave my AEther Vials alone on my turn. And we draw another island, so we can play one of those and just pass back to the opponent. It looks like they drew a card and passed pretty quickly as well. I'm going to bluff an AEther Vial activation. It's possible they have a Vendilion Click in their deck, but they choose not to respond. All right, once again, AEther Vials are fine. So hoping to hit something. Harbinger's a creature. It's not really good, though. Play out that extra island, and for the opponent's 11th turn, we see the arrival of Jace the Mind Sculptor. So this is the first time I've come across this guy in Modern, and looks pretty scary in this spot. I'm going to start off by brainstorming. Now, this is extra powerful since he has a fetch land uncracked on the table. He can put 2 bad cards from his hand on top of his deck and then shuffle them away with the Scalding Tarn. The opponent finishes brainstorming, and I think at this point he decided to get in with the Snapcaster and start his clock. I'm definitely not going to block him. I'm definitely not going to bounce him, so I'll just wait until the end step to bring in this Harbinger of the Tides. So again, not bouncing the Snapcaster, and of course the opponent has a Path to Exile in his hand. Gets another land out of our deck, hopefully preventing us from drawing future lands. Kira is an amazing top deck because she might be too much for the opponent to answer. She might be able to get Jace off of the table. So for his turn, the opponent brainstorms again with Jace, keeping him at 3. Follows up with a Search for Azcanta. Still have 3 cards in hand, and I expect they'll continue to get in with this Snapcaster, bringing me down to 16. And during their end step, I will bring in Kira. As I mentioned, that is a really, really great card to draw in this spot. If I can just swing in twice into Jace, he'll be off the table, and I'll have some hope of winning this game. Spreading Seas, not amazing. I'm going to go after Jace here, see if the opponent responds in any way. They do not, so Jace is at 1, and I can try to go after one of these white sources again. But another Snapcaster, presumably into more counter magic. Yeah, they flash back a Spell Snare. No value at all off of my Spreading Seas this game. The opponent has just always had the counter spell. So they put a Sacred Foundry into the graveyard with Search for Azcanta. They target Kira with Jace's -1, which says unsummon. That, of course, kills the Jace and breaks Kira's shield, which means, of course, the opponent has a Lightning Helix in hand, gains life, and what else could he possibly have if he killed the first Jace but a second Jace? So he gets to Fate Seal me now. He left the card on top. I take 4 from the Snapcasters, and seeing that the opponent Fate Sealed an island on top of my deck, I just chose to scoop. Now, that might have looked a little overwhelming. Jace pretty much crushed us, but the opponent literally had an answer at every single step of the game. That is like the most efficient I've ever seen a control deck run. The opponent wasn't drawing lands during the mid portion of the game when I was trying to establish threats. They had a board wipe. They had 3 lightning helices. On top of that, they just had lightning bolts, Path to Exile, Snapcaster Mages. Everything just went perfectly for them. And to top it all off, they had 2 Jaces just in time to crack the Kira shield and get her off the table. So we are not underdogs to blue, white, and Jeskai control, but we have to draw pretty well and we have to play very carefully. In this case, the opponent had kind of a god hand, and even if we could have established a nice board, they had a Snapcaster for a Supreme Verdict, so they had it all wrapped up. Look away if you don't want to see the match result. I'm going to click out of the window now. All right, back for game 2. I'm going to be on the play. And this is a beautiful hand. We've got Counter Magic, Cavern of Souls, AEther Vial, so feeling pretty good about it. Opponent, just a Flooded Strand, go. We're going to crack it during my upkeep, kind of strange timing. And I'll take my AEther Vial up, play an Island Walk Lord, and pass to the opponent. So they just play another Flooded Strand, don't do anything with it, pass the turn back to me. During my upkeep, I'll put AEther Vial on 2. Now, I'd really like to stop drawing lands at some point. I'm not going to cast this Lord this turn, so I can just play out a Mutavault. But first, we'll go to combat. If the opponent tries to, for example, Snapcaster like as Ambush Viper, we have an Island Walk Lord to gain Island Walk. If they try, well, let's see what's happening here. Steam Vent's going down to 16. They're going to try to Lightning Helix the Lord. Now, that is too much value. Dispel, you typically want to save for a huge spell like Cryptic Command or Sphinx's Revelation or something like that, but I'd rather keep my Lord and not let the opponent gain 3 life. So let's go ahead and use this Dispel. I'm going to attack. I'm not going to bring in my Lord. Just play another Mutavault. Not another Mutavault, but a Mutavault. And the opponent's down to 14. Scalding Tarn, go. And since we've been drawing lands, I can't really afford to commit my last creature to the table at this point. So another land is pretty terrible for us. The opening hand looked fine, but it hasn't developed very well since that point. I'm going to activate Mutavault here, and I can actually attack with both creatures. If the opponent tries any shenanigans, I could potentially bring in the other Lord and push 7. 3 mana against Jeskai can mean Electrolyze, but the opponent seems to be smart enough to play around AEther Vial here. So they took the 5 damage, and they just play a land and pass. So again, just drawing lands, I can't commit my last creature to the table just yet. But during my upkeep, the opponent cracks a Flooded Strand and gets an island. They're going for the Electrolyze now. I don't really have any choice but to bring in my other Lord and try to save him. Of course, if the opponent has more removal, they're going to be able to remove both of the Lords. But, you know, 2 removal spells typically lines up well against 2 creatures. So I'm going to go for it. And the opponent cracks his other land, gets a red source, and bolts the other Lord. So, of course, again, having it all, and both my Lords die. So if that Negate had come 1 turn earlier, replacing any of those lands, that would have been a huge blowout against the opponent. The Electrolyze would not have killed my creature, and the Bolt would have gotten countered. So I would have then been able to swing for 7, which would have been lethal. So, just a really, really poorly timed sort of sequence of draws there. As it stands, I can only get in with Mutavault after playing a land, and just hope that the opponent can't deal with this Mutavault. There's a Celestial Colonnade, which is a pretty decent answer to my Mutavault. This turn, I'm just going to play a Master of Waves and hold up Negate. The opponent, what are they doing? I think they realized that I was using Cavern of Souls. Okay. So they went for Path to Exile here, and having seen Jace in game 1, I decided that I'd keep my Negate for something a little bit more substantial. I've still got a clock going with Mutavault, and I've got more creatures in the deck. I let the Path to Exile resolve. It'll let me get another land out of the deck. It's possible I should have countered that. It was a close call. The opponent's playing a tapped Sacred Foundry and passing to me. They don't have enough mana to activate and block with Celestial Colonnade this turn, so I think I'll play out the Reejerey here, and I can activate Mutavault and try to attack. See how it goes. All right, so 3 mana, 4 mana. They're going to try to tap and bounce. I think I can negate that. It seems reasonable. Opponent does not have an answer for it. That's the first thing I've done that they have not been able to answer. All right, so they're down to 2, and we've got our Mutavault on the board. So what's happening here? Electrolyze on Reejerey. Another counterspell would be an awesome draw. Island's not an awesome draw. We're going to go for the win here with Mutavault. And of course, they've got an answer. There's a Snapcaster Mage. We're going to see a Lightning Helix, and the value is absurd. Lose my only threat. Despite getting a bunch of lands from Path to Exile, I continue to draw islands. And the game effectively slipping out of our fingers here. Cursecatcher off the top, might as well play that guy, but the opponent's got Cryptic Command. He's going to bounce his Snapcaster and draw a card. Engineer Explosives on 1. It's kind of laughing at us at this point. Gets rid of my AEther Vial, gets rid of my Cursecatcher, cracks a land going down to 4, and 5 mana. Yeah, he can start getting in with the Colonnade beats here. Another Cursecatcher, not the best top decks. Serum Visions, don't even care what he did with the draws. Here's a Snapcaster going after Electrolyze. It's going to draw a card. It's going to kill my creature. Search for Azcanta. Opponent down to 1 card. Negate is pretty slow, but can hit something like Jace. If he opponent chose to keep the card that was on the top with Azcanta. Not attacking with Colonnade here. Passes the turn. Master of Waves is decent. Brings 4 power. The opponent is at 4 life. Does have a Colonnade back, which is pretty terrible for us. Okay, trying to bounce the Snapcaster and draw a card. I'm going to try to counter that, but the opponent is going to activate Azcanta in response. Lets the counter resolve, but he drew a Path to Exile off of Azcanta, so... Now, obviously, Azcanta, super powerful, going to let them draw more cards. Typically, in the sort of early late game, we're not totally out of it. But if we draw poorly and the opponent draws super well, then it can be very difficult to keep up. Colonnade, I'm getting very close to scooping here. You know, we had 2 caverns, which is perfect in this game. But we drew too many lands in the early part of the game. At this point, I'm effectively dead, but I might as well just play the Silvergill Adept and see what I draw. And I just scooped at that point. So, 2 very, very difficult games against this Jeskai deck. It is a difficult matchup. I think we might be slightly favored. Aggro typically is favored against control decks. They give us access to Island Walk. But if they have the board wipe, if they have all the spot removal, if we draw too much land, things can pretty easily go wrong. And if the opponent gets to the late game, they're going to be able to sort of just outvalue us with Snapcasters getting tons of stuff from the graveyard, Jace getting tons of value, Azcanta getting tons of value. I didn't draw any relics this game. which could have helped a lot against some of this graveyard value. But anyhow, we lost 0-2 against Jeskai Control, running Jace the Mind Sculptor. Let me know your thoughts on the match. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments below. Check out my Patreon page, please. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll be back in the next video with the 4th round of this Modern League. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.